Hey there. We are reading now chapter 36 of P.S. I Love You. That Sunday, Richard called around to visit Holly with the kids. She had told him he was welcome to bring them whenever it was his day with them so that they could give Holly and Richard's parents some peace and quiet in their own home for the day. They played outside in the garden while Richard and Holly finished off their dinner and watched them through the patio doors. They seemed really happy, Richard, Holly said, watching them play. Yes, they do, don't they? He smiled. I want things to be normal for them as possible. They don't quite understand what's going on, and it's quite difficult to explain. What have you told them? Oh, that mommy and daddy don't love each other anymore, and that I moved away so that we can all be happier. Something along those lines. And they're okay with that? Her brother nodded. Timothy is. But Emily is worried that we might stop loving her and that she will have to move away. He glanced at Holly, his eyes sad. Poor Emily, Holly thought, watching her dancing around with her scary looking doll. She couldn't believe that she was having this conversation with Richard. He seemed to be a totally different person these days. I like how this splitting stuff is like really normally put here in this book because I think overall life is really normally put in this book because it's very difficult for people to separate shame and the feeling of failure from their divorce. It's like, oh, I couldn't make um, things work or my marriage work. Not really understanding, like, uh, I think accepting, I mean, easier said than done, obviously, but not like really understanding that it's better this way. It's like it could be worse, it could be worse, it could be there in that wedding, just like dragging it along. I feel I, that's my personal belief that divorce is always better than always like standing being stranded and like strangled in that wedding. So yeah, that was a heavy topic for me. Hmm. Or perhaps it was Holly who had changed. She had a higher tolerance for him now and found it easier to ignore his annoying little comments, though there still were many of them. But then again, she and Richard now had something in common. They both understood what it was like to feel lonely and unsure of themselves. How's everything going at Mom and Dad's house? Richard swallowed a forkful of mashed potatoes and nodded. Going good. They are being extremely generous. Kiara bothering you at all? Holly felt as if she was questioning her child after his first day of school, wanting to know if the other kids had bullied him. But lately she felt so protective of him. It helped her to help him. It gave her strength. Kiara is Kiara, he smiled. We won't see eye to eye on a lot of things. Well, I wouldn't worry about that, Holly said, trying to stab a piece of pork with her fork. The majority of the world wouldn't see eye to eye with her either. Her fork finally made contact with the pork, and she sent it flying off her plate and through the air where it landed on the kitchen counter on the far side of the room. And they say pigs don't fly, Richard remarked. Holly giggled. Hey, Richard, you made a funny. He looked pleased with himself. I have my moments too, I suppose, he said, shrugging his shoulders. You made a funny? Is this a printing mistake? Although I'm sure you think I don't have many of them. Holly spread a carrot, put down her fork and put down her knife and fork and chewed it slowly, trying to decide how to phrase what she was going to say. We are all different, Richard. Kiara is slightly eccentric. Declan is a dreamer. Jack is a joker. And well, I don't know what I am. But you were always very controlled, straight, and serious. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You're just all different. It's weird how just like siblings or cousins, but cousins I can still understand, like siblings, even siblings could be like really different. You're very thoughtful, Richard said after a long silence. Pardon? Polly asked, feeling confused. To cover her embarrassment, she stuffed her face with another mouthful of food. I've always thought you were very thoughtful, he repeated. When? Polly asked incredulously through her mouthful. Well, I wouldn't be sitting here eating dinner with the kids running around having fun outside if you weren't thoughtful now. But I was actually referring to when we were children. I don't think so, Richard. Me and Jack were always so awful to you, she said softly. You weren't always awful, Holly. He gave her an amused smile. Anyway, that's what brothers and sisters are for, to make each other's lives as difficult as possible as they grow up. It forms a great bias for life, toughens you up. It forms a great basis for life, toughens you up. Anyway, I was the bossy older brother. So how does that make me thoughtful? Cody asked, feeling she had completely missed the point. You idolized Jack. You used to follow him around all the time, and you would do exactly what he told you to do. He started laughing. I used to hear him telling you to say things to me, and you would run into my room terrified and blurt them out and run away again. Polly looked at her plate embarrassed. She and Jack used to play terrible tricks on Richard. But you always came back, Richard continued. You would creep back into my room silently and watch me working at my desk, and I knew that was your way of saying sorry. He smiled at her. So that makes you thoughtful. None of our siblings had a conscience in that house of ours. Not even me. You were the only one. Always the sensitive one. He continued eating his dinner, and Holly sat in silence, trying to absorb all he had said. She didn't remember idolizing Jack, but when she thought about it, she supposed Richard was right. Jack was her funny, cool, good looking big brother who had loads. I missed the line, where's it? Who had loads of friends, and Holly used to beg him to let her play with them. She supposed she still felt that way about him. If he called her right now and asked her to go out, she would drop everything and go, and she had never even realized that before. However, she was spending far more time with Richard than with Jack these days. Jack had always been her favorite brother. Jerry had always got along with Jack the best. It was Jack that Jerry would choose to go out for drinks with during the week, not Richard. It was Jack that Jerry would insist on sitting beside a family dinner. However, Jerry was gone, and although Jack rang her every now and then, he wasn't around as much as he used to be. Had Holly put Jack up on too much of a pedestal? She realized then that she had been making excuses for him every time he didn't call round or phone her when he said he would. In fact, she had been making excuses for him ever since Jerry had died. Was it only their friendship with Jerry that they now had in common? Richard had lately managed to give Holly a regular intake of food for thought. She watched him remove his serviette from his collar, and was interested as he folded it into a neat little square with perfect right angles. He obsessively straightened everything on the table so that they were all facing right way in an orderly fashion. For all Richard's good qualities, which she now recognized, Polly could not live with a man like that at all. They both jumped as they heard a thump from outside and saw little Emily lying on the ground in floods of tears while a shocked looking Timmy looked on. Richard leaped out of his chair and hurried outside. But she just fell, Daddy. I didn't do anything. Polly heard Timmy plead with his father. Poor Timmy, she rolled her eyes as she watched Richard dragging him by the arm and ordering him to stand in the corner to think about what he had done. Some people would never really change, she thought wryly. The next day, Holly jumped around the house ecstatically as she replayed the message on the answering machine for the third time. Hi, Holly, came the gruff voice. This is Chris Feeney from X. I'm just calling to say that I was very impressed with your interview. He stalled. A bit. Well, I wouldn't normally say this on answering machine, but no doubt you'll be delighted to know that I have decided to welcome you as a new member of the team. I would love you to start as soon as possible, so call me on the usual number when you get a chance, and we'll discuss it further. Goodbye. Polly rolled around her bed in terrified delight and pressed the play button again. She had shot for the moon, and now she had landed. So that's the end of chapter 36. Really happy. This book is finally turning out really well. I like Richard's character. Matlab, like, I think will grow up on us. Like, hopefully, it'll be better. Uh, yeah, he's like more on the boring side, and I don't really like how he treated that Timmy situation. He was just like making Timmy feel guilty and like not guilty. He's just making like Timmy harden up, by that punishment thing. I don't like dragging like children and asking them to like get into confinement, like what we do with prisoners, criminals. So that's a bit much, but yeah, hoping. I actually forgot how Richard's character. Like I know Holly and Richard got uh, together like much better um, after like Jerry died, but I completely have forgotten what it is about um, Richard and like how his character is gonna flourish even more because you can still clearly see that Holly does not see eye to eye with him, which is all right. Like we all have, we can't be twins of other people, There'll be no fun in that. But yeah, so far good. It is a good book. Meet you soon. Bye bye.